So now let's start the class. Let us create a framework from scratch, right? So our topic today is to create a framework from scratch. So sometimes you work in a company, you're testers, and you're using tools, right? You say that you know Cucumber, you know TestNG, you know Selenium, Java, and you go to a company and then they're using those tools. They have created a framework and you're building, like you're working on that tool. But the problem is that if you go there as a senior developer or as a team lead, then they might ask you to start creating a project from scratch. And it is not very difficult, but of course it has some difficulties in it. So I wanted to make sure that all of you know how to create. Of course, I'm sure that most of you know how to do it, but just I wanted to repeat it one more time and to create a project from scratch. And whenever you see that somebody does a project, it doesn't mean that that's the only way to create a project. There are different ways to do it, but this is one of the ways, one of the let's say accepted ways in automation testing. Okay, so I'm going to create a project from scratch, and here in my case, I'm using Eclipse as an IDE. Okay, so I'm going to use Java 8. I'm going to use Eclipse, and I'm going to create a Maven project. And I'm going to use Cucumber framework. Okay, so Cucumber tool. Also, I'm not expecting you to write it with me because it will take like more than 3 hours to do it everything. So I'm just willing to finish this one in less than 2 hours. So I'm going to try to create it step by step. You can watch. If I'm going fast, you can just let me know. You can say, can you please slow down? But please don't try to do everything with me, because it will be like then we'll not have time to finish it all. Okay, so the video will be there. We'll share the video with you. Just watch for now, and then after that, if you want to do it, then you can watch the video and do it step by step. Okay, so let me start creating a project. So we go to File, New Project, right? I don't know, some of you they use IntelliJ, some of you use NetBeans, some of you use Eclipse. So I'm going to do this project with Eclipse, and this is similar with other IDEs. Okay, so I'm going to create a new project, and as you can see here, I'm going to create a Maven project. Okay, so why do we use Maven project? There are three reasons why we're using Maven project. One is to build the project structure, right? The packages and the folders that we need. Two, we need to manage dependencies. Instead of like downloading the jar files and adding into our project, we're going to use pom.xml file to manage the dependencies. And the third one is you can run the test from the command line. Okay, so these are the things. That's why we're using Maven project. When we create a Maven project, if we go next here, you'll see that there are different archetypes. These are different templates that you can use. But instead of using any of them, I'm going to go back to the previous step, and I'm going to say create a simple project. I'm going to skip the archetype. So this will give us a specific let's say template, and I'm going to use that template. Okay, so if I say next, so the only two things that we need here is the group ID and artifact ID. Group ID is let's say the company name, right, or the company website. So in my case, I'm going to say com.neotech. Okay, and the artifact ID is the project name. So our company, they can create, let's say, different projects. So this is one of the projects that our company will create. Okay, so the artifact ID will be, let's say, automation framework. I can also call it Cucumber framework, but since I have another Cucumber framework because I have done this one with my students, so that's why I'm going to call this one automation framework. Okay, and then we say finish. So as you can see, it automatically created a Java project for us, but this is a Maven project. How do I know? I know it because I see here pom.xml, right? Pom.xml, this is the heart of the Maven project. This is where we put the dependencies, which will help us, let's say, get the jar files from the Maven repository. So if we see the structure here, we see that we have source main Java, source main resources. These two folders are for developers. So let's say if you're working in a company, you can see the source code and you can see also the test code. So here, source test Java and source test resources. These are the folders, or let's say the packages for the testers. But in some of the companies, they say, you know what, we have a different project for the developers and we have a different project for the testers. So they don't want the tester to see the code of the developers, depending on the company. So in our case, we're going to delete these two. So we don't care about what is the code of the developers. We're just going to deal. So I'm going to delete these two. Okay. And I'm going to keep only these two folders, which will be the code and the resources for the testers. Okay. And then if we open pom.xml file, as I told you earlier, this is the heart of the Maven project, where we'll store all the configuration of our project. And then here we see that the group ID is com.neotech, whatever we entered, and the artifact ID is automation framework, right? The name of the project. So here inside the project, I'm gonna, as you can see here, this by default is using Java 1.8. Okay, this is using Java 1.8. But I want, sorry, Java 1.5. But I want to use Java 1.8 because that was a very stable version. And generally, after that, most of the developers have been using Java 1.8. And of course, you can also use Java 1, Java 9, 11, and now I think 13 came out. But Java 1.8, or they also call it Java 8, this is a very stable version. How do I do it? There are different ways, but one of the ways to do it, it is by using this. It is by using this code here. So we use the properties here, and this tells that to compile and to run the code, we'll use Java 1.8. Okay. So don't worry, I'm going to share the code at the end with you guys, so you don't have to type anything right now. Just watch, and then I'm going to do a GitHub repository at the end. I'm going to share it with you here in the Taifa team Slack. Okay. So when I save this one, this still shows Java 1.5. If I want to make this one, like to see the correct version, let's say, we have to update the Maven project. So right click here in the project, and here we see Maven update project. After we update our project, then what it will do, as you can see now, it says that it is using Java 1.8. So the libraries here that are used are not Java 1.5 anymore, but they're Java 1.8. As you can see here, JDK, that's the, let's say, these are the jar files that are needed for the developers, okay, to develop Java code. So this is Java 1.8. Okay, this is one of the things that we do. The second thing that we configure here in the pom.xml is here again, inside here, we have to add dependencies, okay? So we write dependencies here. And then inside this, so this is an XML format, right? You know that when you have this kind of tags, the starting tag and the ending tag, this is XML format, right? So where will we find dependencies? So we go to Maven repository, right? Maven repository. So this is the main repository where most of the companies, they put their jar files if other companies, they want to reuse their projects. So you go here, and we want to use Selenium, right? In our project, we want to use Selenium jar files. There is one way to do it by going here, right? By going here to the build path, right? So we go here to the build path. Where is it? Okay, let me do it one more time. Okay, build path. And then here we can add the jar files, right? Download the jar files and add it here. But in my computer, it will have a different path. And in the computers of my colleagues, it will be in a different path, right? So instead of doing like this, we just add the dependency. So we go here and we search for Selenium Java, right? We search for Selenium Java. And then please be careful here. You have to select the correct one. So I want to use this project. I want to use Selenium Java libraries in my project, right? So I have to add a dependency in my project. So I find the one which is most used. You see here 3.141.59. Okay, so this is used the most. So I will select this one. These are alpha versions, so they are not probably stable. So I wouldn't prefer to use those, but of course you can also try these new versions. Okay, so I'm going to use 3.141.59. 141.59. So you click here, and then you select and you copy this dependency. Okay, so if you're using Maven Project, you have to copy this dependency here. If you're using Gradle, then you have this dependency, depending on the type of the project that you're using. So in some companies, they're using Maven. In another one, they're using Gradle. So as I said, there's not only one way to solve the problems. There are different ways, okay? So let's suppose that we're using Maven and we're copying this one here. So we go to the dependency and we add this dependency here, okay? At the moment that I save, guys, at the moment that I save, you'll see here at the left, you'll see the jar files that will be downloaded. So I just saved, and here on the left, you see that this one was added, Maven Dependencies. So all the Selenium jars that are needed are downloaded from this repository that is online, right? This repository that is online is downloaded to my local repository in my computer, okay? And all of them are here. So if I need to use Selenium, they're all there. So this is called M2 repository or the local repository. Sometimes it's possible so that you might need some dependencies and you may not find it here. It's because some companies, for security purposes, they don't want to put it there. They want to have it in their servers. So in that case, you cannot find it in Maven repository, and that's called remote repository, right? This is called central repository, and if they keep in their servers, it's called remote repository. And when you download here in your computer, now this is called, now they're downloaded to your local repository. So we can go one by one to download, to find the dependencies and put it in our project, but I have it already here, so I'm going to share it with you. As I said at the end, you don't need to find them one by one. I'm just copying it from here. I'm going to paste it here. Okay, so these are the dependencies that you'll need in your project. Look at this one, guys. You have these jar files. At the moment that I save, 1, 2, 3, I saved, and you see here, these are all the dependencies, all the jar files that are needed are downloaded to my local repository. So PSP'de var, yapılmışı var burada. So yes, I don't want to search them one by one, but I'm going to explain them one by one. So this repository here will help, right? This this dependency here will help us save the screenshots to our computer, right? Commons.io is for input output, so to save files to our computer. Apache POI is if we need to read any Excel files, or if we need to write, if we need to manipulate Excel files, we use Apache POI, okay? And Cucumber Java and Cucumber JUnit, these are the two dependencies that we need if we're going to use Cucumber in our project. Okay, so these are the dependencies, and as far as we save it, they are downloaded here. Okay, so I'm going to close this one, and all the dependencies are now in our local computer. So so this is pom.xml file, and then we're going to continue at this one later on. But for now, just you need to know that there are two parts. One, this is to use Java 8, and the second part is to add the dependencies that we need in our project. Okay. Okay, and then we see here the structure. So we said test, source, test Java. This is where we're going to keep our Java code, and source, test, resources. There is where we're going to keep our files that are not related, that are not code, right? It's not Java code. For example, we're going to save there the configuration.properties. We're going to save there the drivers or the feature files. We're going to save in this folder here. Okay. Okay, and then also one more thing. Here we have target. This is where the compile code, right? The code that is generated by Maven, it will be saved here in the target folder. And also when we generate the reports, also reports are going to be there in the target folder. Okay, so let me start here with resources. So right click here, new, and here we say other, and we say folder. I want to add a folder here in the resources. Okay, the first folder that I'll add is the drivers folder. Drivers folder. This is where we're going to keep our Chrome driver, Firefox driver, Internet Explorer driver. So all the drivers will be here. Of course, there are different ways to do it, but I'm just using this way. But there is also another way where you can just use from online. Okay, one is the drivers, and the drivers, of course, you have to find it, download it in your computer, and then add it to this folder. But I'm just going to copy it from my other project. Okay, so resources, not configs, but drivers. And then here, I'm going to copy them from here to the drivers in my project. Okay, so now in our automation project, we have the Chrome and Gecko driver. Okay, and of course, we can add also other drivers. The second folder that I will add here, right click, new, other, and I say folder. Okay, and then the second folder that I'll create is the configs folder, configs. So what do we keep here? And of course, the names can be different. It can be configuration. It can be different. But this is one of the standards that is used in this, let's say, in the software terminology, right? So configs is where we're going to keep our property file, right? In property file, we store the configuration of the browser that we use, the URL, the username, password. So those data that are related to our for example, if you are connecting to a SQL server, here is where you put the, let's say, the URL and the database username and password, right? So configs, it will be the properties here, configuration.properties. So again, I have this code here. Okay, let me create a file here, right click, new file, and I'm going to call this one configuration.properties. Okay, oh sorry, properties. Okay, and here I'm going to save the URL. So I want to use Chrome browser. If I want to use Firefox, I just change this one. I'm going to log into this website. So today for the demonstration, I'm going to use source demo website. Of course, this project will work with any different application, but I'm going to use this one as a demonstration today. And the username and password that we use to log into this website. Okay, so we save here in under configs. Okay, so we have drivers, we have configs. We will need new folder here, always new, other, and we select folder. And here we're going to put test data. So today I'm not going to use this folder, but next week, when our other teacher will do a class, there will be an Excel file here, and then the data will be read from this Excel file, and then it's going to be a test, data-driven test, right? So with different data, you're going to run the same test. So for today, I'm not going to put any Excel file here, but that's where we're going to keep our Excel files. And the last one is new, other folder, and here we add features, right? Features. Here is we're gonna keep our feature files, right? Feature files are the files that we write what we want to do with our code. So it will be the cucumber, right? The Gherkin language. Okay, so I'm not gonna fill it for now. I'm gonna do it later. Okay, so this is the resources. These are not Java code. Here we keep the properties. Here we keep our drivers. Here we keep our feature files and also the Excel files, right? So here in this folder here, source test Java, here is where we keep our Java code, right? And here I'm gonna build a structure. So I'm gonna start here with new. I'm gonna create a package. So one of the packages is pages, right? So com.neotech.pages. Okay. So here the first package here, since we're going to use page object model, here we're going to keep the classes which are responsible to find the elements of any website, right? Of any web page. So we're going to use page object design pattern, right? And here we're going to store those pages. The second package that we need here is right click, new package. The second one is com.neotech. is runners. So runners here is where we keep our runner classes. So we have regression runner, we have test runner, we have smoke runner. We can have different runners, and whenever we run our tests, we are going to use these classes here. Okay. And then the third one that we use is, sorry, let me go here, new package. The third one with it that we use are the steps, right? com.neotech.steps. So here is where we keep our step definition. So for every step in feature file, there will be the implementation, the Java implementation of these steps. They will be in the classes here in steps package. Okay. The fourth one is com.neotech.test data, right? Test base, sorry, test base. So here is where we keep our base class, which is responsible for every class that will use this test base, the base class, for opening the browser and for closing the browser. So we're going to explain them one by one. And the last package that I'm going to create, new package, is com.neotech.utils. Utils or utilities, you can name it as you want, and sometimes they call it helper. So here we have the helper classes. The classes here will help us, right? The classes here will help us do some stuff. For example, if you want to read and write in an Excel, we have a Excel utilities or Excel helper class. If we want to read these properties class here, right, we need a class that will be responsible for reading and writing that. So sometimes they call it utilities, sometimes they call it helper, doesn't matter. And of course, probably in your school or in your boot camp, you learned it probably a different structure. It doesn't matter. They're like 90% the same, but these are small slight differences that there are different preferences. So I prefer this way, another one prefers in a different way. As long as it works, all are acceptable. Okay. Okay, and let me start from the utils class. So one of the classes that we'll have there, is configs reader, right? So let me go here, and of course I don't want to write it from scratch. I'm just gonna create here a class, new class, configs reader. And as the name indicates, this is responsible for reading the configuration.properties file. Okay, and if there are different properties files, this will be the one that will help us read those files. So let me paste it here and let me save. So here we have two methods. One is to read the file and one is to get any of the properties. So to import, so one more time. So this one tells me that this class is, where is this class? We need to import this class, okay? Because these properties, I don't know this class. So in Mac, I have Command-Shift-O, which is the shortcut for that. In Windows, it's Control-Shift-O. You probably already know it. So Command-Shift-O will import the classes that are used here. So read properties, this method, as a parameter, it accepts a string, which will be the path. Which file do you want to read? So I'm going to give the path, and then it will open the file. It will create an input stream, and then it will read the properties. This method reads this file here, configuration.properties files. It will read them into a map, key value pair. So this is the key, this is the value. This is the key, this is the value. Whenever we want any value, you can find them by the key, right? And then after it's loaded, it will be stored in this variable here, properties. And then anytime that I want any of the values there, I will find it by using this method here, properties.getProperties. So by giving the key, say I want to get what is the browser, and it will return me Chrome, right? So what is the browser? It will return me Chrome. What is the URL? It will give me the URL, okay? So this is configs reader file, and this one has only two methods, and this is responsible to read this configuration.properties. Okay. The second file that we need here is Excel utility, right? Today I'm not going to use it, but still I'm going to put it in my project. So new class, and I'm going to call it Excel utility. Okay, Excel utility. And this one is responsible, as I told, to read the Excel files that will be under this folder. So we have it ready here, and I'm not going to write this one from scratch, but of course, as I told you, I'm going to share the code with you, and you can have a look at the end, and then you can reuse it in your projects. Okay, so these are classes that are created one time, and of course, in our school, I explained it step by step how these utilities, Excel utility is created, how to read the file, and how to manipulate, how to read the sheets and everything. But of course, here for time purposes, I'm just gonna copy paste this one. And again, I have to import this one, workbook and sheet. These classes are in the jar files that I imported here in the Maven dependencies, right? So the jar files are here. And then when I want to use it in my Excel utility class here, I have to import it. So Command Shift O, and then this will add the classes here. Okay, so be careful to use the correct one. Let me see which one is the correct one here. Okay, so this is the correct one. Be careful, don't use the other one. Okay, even if you use it, then you're gonna get an error, and then you're gonna fix it. Okay, so this is the Excel utility. So what does this one do? This will read. So let me go step by step. One of the methods is to open the Excel file, right? It will open an Excel file. It will read. So just again, it needs the path. Where is the file? In this path. And then when you read the file, it will read it into an input stream. After that one, it will read this input stream, and it will convert it into a Excel workbook. So since we use that dependency, we are able to read the file as an Excel file. After we have the file in this format into a workbook, which is an Excel file, then from that one we can get any sheet by just providing the sheet name. So we have an Excel, and we want to read the first sheet or the second sheet of the Excel, right? So you just give the name, and this is responsible to get the sheet from there. In one sheet, we can read how many rows there are, because by knowing the number of the rows, we know how to iterate them and how to get data from them. And also, here's how we get the columns in a specific row. So if we get the row index, we can get the column number in that specific row. Okay, and then we can get the data from any cell in the Excel by just giving the row index and the column index. Okay, so this will get us the data in a string format, right? That's why we converted this one at the end to string. So we get the data from that Excel, and we return it as a string. Okay, and these two methods, one of them from this Excel sheet, this one opens the file, loads the specific sheet, and then creates a two-dimensional object array, right? So it creates a two-dimensional. So of course, the details here I cannot explain at this moment for time purposes, but if you have any questions, I am willing to help you how to read, how to load the information that is in a Excel file into a two-dimensional object array. Okay, and the other one is to read that file and to return a list of maps, right? So for every row, we create a map, and then the header is the key and the value is the value. The header is the key and the value is the value. For the next row, again, the header is the key and the value. So for as many rows there are in that Excel sheet, as many maps will be created, and they will put it into a list. We need this one when we have test-ng and we use data provider. We need those data to come into a two-dimensional object array. That's why we created this method. And if we are using Cucumber, and if we have and if we want to read data from the Excel, generally we need them as a list of maps. That's why you have these two different methods. One will help us if we're using test-ng, and one will help us if we're using Cucumber. And of course, you can create any other data structures that you want that are like fit into your project, okay? Depending on the project. But these two are the ones that we use for test-ng and Cucumber. Okay, so the next file that we need here, right? The next file that we need here, the next class, sorry, is the constants class, right? The constants class. So in the constants class, we keep those constants that are not changeable, right? Let me go here in the constants. Let me copy paste from here. So I am reusing the same thing that I had from a different project into my new project, right? So here is, where's the path to my Chrome driver? That's how I find the path to my Chrome driver. Where's the path to the Gecko driver? This is the path of the Gecko driver. And then where is the configuration.properties path? We need the path of this file here and this file here, because when we need to open them, we have to provide the path. And these paths are not changed, right? They're always at the same place. That's why we have put this into this constants here, right? Because constants, these variables here are public, static, final. Final means that they're not changeable during the code. If you try to change them, you'll not be able to do it, okay? So this will keep the paths of the specific files. And for example, here is the path to the screenshot, right? So here we're going to have a screenshot folder where we're going to keep our screenshots that will be generated from our code. So these are the files that we need in the utils package, okay? And then we go to the test base, right? To the test base, and here we'll have our base class. So new class, base class. And of course, if you have done the project in a different way in your bootcamp or in your school, then you can compare that one with this one, and you can say, okay, I prefer this one for these purposes, I prefer this one for this purpose. So depending on how we're used to, so this is probably a slightly different from your from how you have learned. So there's not only one way, there are different ways to solve problems. Okay, so base class is the class which will open the browser and which will close the browser, right? So here I have base class, and I'm going to copy it from here. Okay, so I'm going to copy paste here, and I'm going to explain what we have here. So here we're having the driver as a variable, and the one method is the setup, right? So let me import these classes first. Command Shift O will import the classes. And this method here, oops, sorry guys, let me close this, my email. Let me make sure that it doesn't open again. Sorry for that. So this method here, setup, is a method which is responsible to open the browser. So it will read the configuration files, right? It's reading the configuration file and will get the browser. If the browser is Chrome, it will open Chrome browser. If the browser is Firefox, it will open Firefox browser. And go like that. You can also open Internet Explorer, and you can open different browsers. And here we are also making sure that we're putting an implicit weight. What is implicit weight? Implicit weight in Selenium is that it will wait for a specific time before throwing an exception that the element is not found, right? So this is generic for the whole project. And also we have explicit weight, which is specific for a specific element, right? So those are Selenium topics. And this will make sure that it will maximize my window, and this will send me to the specific URL that I have stored in my configuration.properties, right? To this URL here. I don't have this class yet, but I'm going to create it now. So that's why it's giving an error. When I create the class, then it will not give me the error anymore. So this will be responsible for initializing the web pages, the classes that will be under this pages package. And then this method will return me back the driver, and then you can use it in the class that you're going to use it. Okay. And tear down, this method is responsible to quit the browser at the end of the project, right? This is responsible to close the browser at the end of the project. So let me now create this page initializer class. Okay, so right click, new class, and I'm going to create page initializer. Here is, okay, this class. Let me copy it from here. Of course, for now it's empty. So we're going to have login page. We're going to have dashboard or main page, however you want to call it. For every page in our project, there's going to be a specific page, a specific class here in this package. and this is where we initialize those classes. Okay, so for now it's empty, but later on we're going to fill this one. So base class, now that this one is created, the error is gone and I can save base class. Okay, so we have base class, we have page initializer, and we have these three under utils. Also here I have another class under utils, new class, and I'm going to call this one common methods. Common methods. And of course you can call it common Selenium methods, you can call it Selenium utility, whatever you want to call it. Here we're going to have some methods which are let's say if I want to click on a drop down, if I want to select one option from the drop down, if I want to click on a radio button, if I want to click on a checkbox, if I want to search in a table, if I want to do so for specific things that are mostly done in Selenium, we're going to use some methods here. Okay, so again, I'm going to copy these methods from here. Okay, I'm going to copy these methods from here, and I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it in my. I'm going to use it here. Okay, so when you create a project, of course, you don't need to write everything from scratch, as long as you have created another project, and then you can copy paste from the other project. Because if you have done it reusable, which means that this project here can be used in a different one, right? So if the code is done in a perfect format, right, then you can use it. You can reuse it in different projects. So I'm going to copy paste this one, and I'm going to import all these things here. Command Shift O will import. So let me go one by one. So date, I don't want to import the wrong things. So util, this one here. Okay, and then file utils, Command Shift O. Okay, so even if you want, also you can also get the imports from the other project, right? But I just imported here. So what do we have here? Common methods has this one, for example. One of the methods is send text. So what does it do? By giving, okay, let me see if we have any announcements here. Okay, no problem. So if you want to send a text to a specific element, this method will get the element and the text that you want to send, and first it will clear the element and then it will send the text, right? So this is a method that can be used if you want to send some text to the element. For example, if you want to click on a radio button, use this method here. If you want to select something from a drop down, you can use different methods. So this one here and this one, these are two different methods with the same name, select drop down, select drop down. These are called overloaded methods. If two methods have the same name, they're called overloaded methods. But as you know, they should have different parameter numbers or different parameter types. In this case, this accepts a web element and a string. In this case, this accepts a web element and an integer. That's why we can have two methods with the same name. If there's a string here, then Java will not allow us having two methods with the same signature. So the method name and the parameters is the signature. It cannot be the same, but only the method name can be the same if the parameters, the type or the order is different, or the number of the parameters is different. Okay. And then this method here, if an alert is shown, it will accept the alert. This will dismiss the alert. So we have different methods. Of course, you can add methods here. You can remove the methods that you don't want. So this is to switch to a specific frame. Again, we have overloaded methods here. Sometimes in the interviews, they can ask you, can you tell me what are overloaded methods? Have you used it in your project? Yes, I've used it in my project. I have switched to frame. There are two methods with a different name, with the same name, but different parameters. So in this case, I can get the name of the frame that I want to switch, or the index of the frame that I want to switch, or I can get it as a web element and switch to the frame. So these three methods have the same name, but different type of parameters. And we continue like that. This is to wait, right, for a specific time for the visibility or for the clickability of a element, right? So this here we're using in the base class, we're using implicit weight. Here we are using explicit weight, right? So let me go here, wait for clickability. And then here we say wait until a specific condition, right? Until the element is clickable. So all these methods have been generated and then can be used in your projects, right? So wait, here I have a method. Instead of using thread.sleep, I prefer this one. So I just put how many seconds I want to wait. And here I use thread.sleep. And then I'm just going to call this method instead of calling thread.sleep and putting into a try catch, right? So these are different methods here. These are Selenium methods. So you can call it Selenium methods. You can call it as you wish. Okay. Okay. So from now on, all these classes that I've created so far can be used in any of the projects. So for example, in my case, I'm going to test this sourcedemo.com, or I don't know, this Swag Labs. You can have a different project in your company. It has a web application, and then you can use the same. But the structure here until now is the same for all the projects, right? So I have the base class, I have the page initializer, I have the common methods, configs reader, constants, Excel utility, and these folders here, which are not Java related files, okay? And then now when we're gonna test the site, this will be different, right? So the pages here will be different, the feature files will be different depending on your project, okay? So what time is it? It's 9 o'clock. I want to give a 10 minutes break because before we start the project, right? And then in 10 minutes, we're going to continue creating the feature file and then writing the steps and everything for and also the pages for this specific project. So I'm going to share this link with you in Taifa team in Slack. You can have a look at this one. You can test it on your own manually before we do it, the automation, okay? If you have any questions, I want to give a break of 10 minutes. Let me see. In chat, there are a lot of questions here, but thank you to Isan, which is answering them, okay? So also, sometimes if I'm going fast and if you have any questions, you can also stop me and you can ask the questions. So is it good if I give a 10 minutes break, guys? Okay, good. So see you in 10 minutes, okay? You need a break, Samra. You can drink some tea, okay? Okay, see you in 10 minutes, guys. Okay, guys, so I am back. Let us continue where we left. As I said in our, so the structure until now, this is, let's say, valid, or this is a good structure for every project, right? So any web application that you have, you can use this structure. So now we're gonna put the feature files and the things that we need to do in the project, okay? So let me go to this website, and let me explain just a couple of minutes what we're trying to do here. And of course, I forgot to explain about our website. Here is where you can register for our course. Just quick advertisement there. So in this website, we have to log in. So here they also gave you the username and the password, right? And then when you log in, you go to this website, right? So this is a demonstration web application. And then, of course, I'm going to do different things. For example, let me log out here. And let me try with the correct username, right? Let me try with the correct username. But let me leave the password empty. If I log in, I want to see this message here, right? Epic set face, password is required. And if I try a random username and a random password, and if I try to log in, I want to see this message here. Epic set face, username and password do not match, okay? So this is the test that I'm going to do today. I'm going to try with a valid username and password. I'm going to try with an empty password, and I'm going to try with a wrong, let's say, username and wrong password, and I want to see these different things. Okay, so let's go to our project, and let me create the feature file. Okay, so the feature file here is new file, and I'm going to create login.feature. Okay, so this is the feature file. This, when you create a feature file, that gives you an example of what can be inside there. So there's a feature file, a feature, and the title of feature. So I want to log in, and then there are a couple of scenarios there, and also can be a scenario outline. So I'm going to just explain, like I'm going to put a couple of scenarios in the example today, and next week when our teacher he'll explain the data-driven test, right? He's going to do scenario outline, and he's going to also do the examples table, right? So those things will be explained next week. And also, and as I told you, yes, don't worry, I'm going to share I'm going to put everything in GitHub, and I'm going to share the code with you at the end, and also the video will be shared. Okay, so here I have a feature. So this is what I want to do. Okay, let me copy paste from here. I don't want to like write them here because I don't want to waste time. So you delete everything and you write the feature that you want. Okay, so the feature is source demo login. I want to test, I want to do the login test today. I have three scenarios. The first scenario is valid login. So if I enter a valid username, and if I enter a valid password, and if I click on the login button, I validate that the user is logged in. So here we're using Gherkin language, right? So these keywords here, feature, which is for a feature file, and scenario, which is for one of the scenarios in the feature file. These are specific keywords, okay? But here you can write as you want. You can also write in Albanian or in Turkish or in other languages, doesn't matter. But you'll have to implement the step by using the Java code. So there was one of my students, this is so funny. He thought that he learned about Gherkin language because we explained at the beginning, and we said that you can write it in any language, and then the code will be implemented, blah, blah, blah. And then he thought that you just write the text there and the code will be implemented by itself. This is funny. And when then I started to implement the code, and he's like, oh, 1 second. So this is no different from the other code. Okay. Yes. So here, as I said, we're using Gherkin language, which when means that, if we have given is a precondition. In our case, we don't have a precondition. We just log into this page. Probably in the scenarios in the next week, logging in will be a precondition, so we don't want to put it in the scenario. So we'll have to create the background keyword and the given keyword, right? So when I do something, and is a continuity of this when. So this is, instead of saying when, we say when and. But actually, this is three whens. And here is where we validate, right? So here is we check the results, and then we want to do some validations there. And the second scenario is I try with an empty password. So again, I enter the valid username, but I leave password empty, and I want to see this message. On purpose, I want this test to fail. That's why I added these three dots here. So if I remove these three dots, the test will pass, but I'm just adding these three here because if we leave the password empty, there are no three dots, but on purpose, I want this one to fail. Why? Because when you see the reports, I want to see that this scenario will pass, this scenario will fail, and this scenario will pass. Okay, on purpose, I'm just give here a wrong message. And the third one is invalid password. So I enter an invalid username, I enter an invalid password, and I click on the login button, and at the end, I validate that this message is shown, right? So username and password do not match with whatever it's here, right? Username and password do not match any user in this service. Okay, and then this one will be passed as a parameter to this step, right? This one, when we put it inside the double quotes, this will be passed as a parameter. So this random username and random password will be passed as the parameter to this step. So if you have not installed Cucumber in your project, in Eclipse, so you need to install Cucumber only once. And also, I can share with you the link that you need to install the Cucumber, right? So you can go here, and then you can install it from either Eclipse Marketplace or here by using install new software. So you'll need to install it only one time. As you can see here, I created a project and I didn't need to install Cucumber again. Why? Because it's already installed in my let's say in my Eclipse, right? And then here are the steps. So also now I have to convert this one into Cucumber project. Here, as of right now, it doesn't show me, it doesn't help me to tell me that this steps is not implemented or if it's implemented. So if I right click here and then I go to configure, convert to Cucumber project, this will convert my project into a Cucumber project. And you'll see here, now you'll see here a sign here, this green sign. After it's built it, just wait for a couple of seconds, and then you'll see here a sign in the project. So here, as you can see, this green sign is showing that this is a Cucumber project. And now you see that these steps, since they're not implemented, they are all yellow. Okay, it means that I cannot find the respective step for this scenario. Okay, so to run this one, you have two different ways. One way is to right click here and run as Cucumber feature. So this will, of course, it'll tell me here that, let me open this one, and it will tell me here that this step is not implemented, this step is not implemented. So this is, and this is also where I can get the snippets to implement, right? To implement the steps that are missing. All the steps that are missing are here. The second way that it can be done, it's because you're going to have a lot of feature files and a lot of scenarios inside the feature files, and you want to run different feature files and some specific scenarios inside the feature files. So you put the tags there. In this case, I put a tag login. So all this file has a tag login, but here we also can have another tag, which is empty password, right? So a tag for, and then if you want to run only this scenario, when you run the test runner, you have to specify which tag you want to run. Okay, so I don't want to run it from here. I want to run it from the runner. So here I have to create, right click, new class, test runner. And here you can have regression runner, you can have smoke runner, you can have different runners that you want. So there you specify which tags, right? Which tags you want to run. Okay, so test runner. This one, let me save this file here. Okay, this one will run the feature file. So in this case, I have only one, but I'll have like multiple feature files in my project, and in every feature file there'll be like generally between 5 to 10 scenarios. You don't want to put too much scenarios in one feature file because it will be very complicated, but you want to run all of them. So in that case, we copy this part here from the other project. Of course, you can write it from scratch, but I don't want to waste my time now and your time. So Command Shift O will import these things that are needed, right? The interfaces that are classes that are needed for the that are used here. So let me explain them one by one. These features, right? So you're going to run by using Cucumber class. Okay, so this will make sure that you're running this one as Cucumber. So you're going to use JUnit, and so when you run this one, right click, run as JUnit. Okay, so you're doing the JUnit test. In TestNG, you're going to run as TestNG. In Cucumber, we are using JUnit. So TestNG is built on top of JUnit, right? And it has add some extra features there, but the standard that Java has is the JUnit test. Okay, so when you're using Cucumber, you want to use JUnit because Cucumber is not a testing tool, but it's this Gherkin language. TestNG is a testing tool, so you have to be careful and you have to know what is done. Okay, and then here this field here, let's say this option here, this tells where to find the feature file. So you have to give a correct path. In my case, it's sources, test, resources, and under that one we have features. Okay, so that's where the feature files will be found. You can also run only one feature file, login.feature, and this will run only that feature file. But when you have multiple features, you don't want to specify them. You want to run anything that is there. Where will be the implementation, right? The definition of those steps. The steps are here in the login, in the feature files, right? Sorry. Let me open this one. So the steps are here. but the implementation of these steps will be in the classes here under Neotext steps, okay? And then this dry run true and false. If it's true, let me make it true now. This will not run the test, but it will just try to find if there is any missing step in the feature file. When you want to run the test, you have to make this one false, okay? And this one here, I'm specifying I want, this is similar, as you can see here, I've also done some explanation here. This is similar to groups in TestNG, right? In TestNG, we have groups where you want to run a specific group. In this case, we have tags in feature files. So you want to run those scenarios that have this tag. Even when I put the tag in the feature file, it means that all the scenarios here, they have this tag. Okay, that's what it means. So I want to run only those feature files, and inside those feature files, only those scenarios that have that specific tag. This monochrome true, this makes sure that it doesn't show some extra stuff there. So it makes the console a little bit cleaner. And here plugin here also, you put some options inside, right? You're using an array of strings here, right? This is an array of strings. So pretty, this prints the gherkin steps in the console. So the gherkin steps that are executed, like in this case here, they are printed in the console. Here null means that the step is not implemented yet. Okay, so when it will be implemented, then it will show also the step here. This creates some basic simple reports. Okay, and this one creates a cucumber.json under target folder. So here under target, where is the target? It's here, right? Not shop right, not price right, but target. So under target folder, the cucumber.json. So there will be in JSON format all the steps that are executed and some information, they will be saved in that in the file. And then when we run the cucumber reports, for it to read this JSON file and it will create the report. Okay, we're going to come to that point. And this one also says that when any of the steps, if they failed, you want to write them under target to be a file here, fail.txt, where will be saved those steps, right? Those scenarios that were failed. And then if you want to run them, also you can run only those failed scenarios. Okay. Okay, so let's continue. Now I want to run the feature file, and as I told you, I made this one true, which means that this will only find the steps that are not implemented in the feature file. So let me right click. Let me run as JUnit test. So what it will do, it will look in this feature folder, and then it will find the steps, the implementation of these steps there. Since they're not implemented, right, all these steps you see are not implemented. And here on the left, it shows me the snippets that I can use, right, the snippets that I can use to implement those steps. So let me copy it from here to the console, and let me copy these steps. So I can copy the steps. These are the steps only for the first scenario. Okay, so let me close this one, and under steps, I'm going to create a class, new class, and here we're going to create this file, which is login steps. Okay, login steps. And okay, it goes down here. Let me bring it up here. Okay, so login steps. Let me close these other classes that are too much here. Okay. So I copied the snippets from here. I'm going to paste it here. So I don't want to write them from scratch. They say, okay, these are the implementation, right? These are the definition, actually, of the steps that are in the feature file. Okay, so I go there. I have to remove this one. So when user enters valid username, and then a method is created, and then here I'll have to implement this method. Okay, when user enters valid password. So all this, that's how Java finds the connection between this step right here and the step that is in the login steps. So this when, then, given, these keywords here have to be imported. So Command Shift O, and the interfaces are imported in my class here. Okay, so now that I save this one here, if I go to this file, these are not yellow anymore. Why? Because these steps are implemented. So if I right click on this one, and if I say find step definition, it will find me where is the respective, let's say, implementation. So here is the implementation of this step here, right? And as you can see in the second scenario, even though these other two are not implemented, but this step, since this was implemented for this one, if you're using the same, let's say, the same sentence, then also this step is implemented. But if you put just a dot here and save, now you cannot find the step because the step here does not have a dot, right? So if we add a dot, then the step will not be found. That's why it's yellow. If I remove the yellow, the period there, and if I save, now the step is there. Okay. So the step is implemented where? In the login steps, and here is the method that is for that specific step. Okay. So let me continue. Let me run the runner test one more time because they're also the second, right? The second scenario. And then when we run this one, only two steps needs to be implemented, right? Leaves username empty and validate. So let me copy this one. Let me copy the snippets, the same thing that we did in the first one. Go to the login steps. Let me add these two. Okay. So these two are added. And of course, I have to remove this one. Always, I like to format my code. Command Shift F will format my code. It will make it more readable. Okay. So these steps now are also implemented. Of course, as of right now, it just does not implement. This is just some random exception will be thrown, but I'll have to implement the code there. But at least the method is there and the step is glued. So two more methods are not implemented yet. And if I run the test runner one more time, right click, run as JUnit test, and then you'll see that those two methods also will be here. The snippets are ready for us. Okay, so I don't need to write it. I can just copy paste from here. So Cucumber makes our lives easier. And here, let me also add those two methods. And then let me remove this extra text here. Command Shift F. And all the steps now are implemented. So if I run the test runner, run as JUnit test, and then I'll see that all these three scenarios, right? I see a green light here. All the steps are implemented. So now everything is ready. Of course, I have to implement the code inside there, but it's ready. And if this part here, like if you don't like this part here, it says that you can create a cucumber.properties file. Let me go here. If you don't want to see this message here again and again, just go under resources, create a new file. Right? It says under resources, right? Yes, new other. Let me create a file. Next. And the name of the file will be cucumber.properties. Finish. And this file is here. And then I just need this parameter inside the file. Cucumber publish quiet. So please be quiet. Don't show me this red square or red rectangle here. And then let me go here and let me put the code and save. So now that this file here, right? Cucumber properties, sorry, not this one. Cucumber properties, it's here. So now that this file has this one, if we run the code again, right, under test runner, right click, run as JUnit test, and you see that that red part is not bothering you anymore. And as you can see here, Cucumber also shows us this scenario is run, okay, is in line 5 in login feature, and this step here is in this file, in this step is this in this class, and it is this method, right? So for every step, it also shows the corresponding method where it is. So if you don't want to see this one, you go to the test runner and you remove the pretty from here, right? So if I comment out pretty, and if I run it one more time, run as JUnit test, and of course you're not going to see the tests. You're not going to see the steps printed there. So if you want to see the steps, you just leave it like this. If you don't want it, you just comment it out. Okay. So now I want to run the test. Okay. Now I want to run the test. So I remove this true here and I make it false. Okay. I make it false. So now what does it mean? It means that when I make dry run false, it means that now the steps will be executed. Okay. If I make it true, they will not be executed. Only it will show me here the missing steps. Okay, it will only show me here the missing steps. But if it is okay, so but if it is false, it will also execute the steps. Okay, so let us continue. So we have the feature file now. All the steps, the methods are created here, and of course I have to implement every method here. Okay, and the test runner is also ready. Okay, one thing, if I want something to execute before every scenario, guys, in every feature file, I create the hooks class. Okay, so hooks class is a special class for us, which has two methods, right? One is before and one has the annotation after. This will run before and after every scenario. If you want to run something before the scenarios here in this feature file, you put it into the given step in the background. But that given step in the background is only before the scenarios in this feature file. If you want something in all the feature files, then you create the hooks class. So that's the difference between hooks and scenario outline. Okay, sorry, and background. I'm sorry, guys, and background, which is in the feature file. So let me go here under steps. Okay, and hooks needs to be under steps. Why? Because that's where we, in the test runner, we said that look for the feature files, look here, and for the steps, look in this package. So if I don't put it there, then it will not find the methods in the hooks. Okay, steps, right click, new class, hooks class. Okay, so this is a special class, right? This is a special class. Of course, I'm going to copy it from here. I don't want to write it from scratch. So this one is responsible, right? This one is responsible to run before and after every scenario in the feature file. This is similar to what in TestNG? This is similar to listeners in TestNG, right? So if you use listeners in TestNG, it will listen to the test methods, and before and after them will do something. This is similar to that one in Cucumber. Okay, Command Shift O will import the needed, right? The needed classes. Okay. Okay, good. So here we have two methods. Start every time before every scenario. Before I can also put it here, right? But I have to put it in every scenario. Open the browser. At the end, close the browser. Open the browser, close the browser. Open the browser, close the browser. Instead of doing like that, what do? I create the hooks class and I use the before annotation, right? So this annotation here says that before every scenario, this method will execute, right? The start. So here we call base class dot setups, right? We're calling the setup method, which will create, right? Will open the browser, and then here at the end, when we're done, we close the browser. Here we're calling base class dot tear down. But also I want to take the picture and put it into my specific position, right? I want to create a screenshot folder here and put the pictures there. And also I want to add that picture into my scenario, right? I want to add that picture. So we're gonna see an example. So here in the common methods, I have created a take screenshot method. Of course, I can also have that method in the hooks class, but I have created this method there, which will take a screenshot, save it somewhere, and also return us back the picture in a byte array, right? In a byte array. Why? Because we get it and we also add that one into the scenario. Okay, so of course there are a lot of details here that need to be explained, but I'm gonna just leave it for that. So at the end of every scenario, I will take a screenshot. If the scenario failed, I'll do something. I'll take the screenshot and put in this folder. If the scenario failed, if the scenario passed, I'll take the screenshot and put into this folder, right? And also I'll add the picture into my scenario, right? Into my reports. Okay, good. So let us continue. So also we created the hooks class. Now we have to implement the steps here, right? So user enters a valid username. So I'm going to go here and I'm gonna put the username here, right? What is the valid username? Standard underscore user. So how I can do it, right? How I can do it? I need now to create the pages here in the com.neotech.pages. So here is where I will, here's where I will keep my, well, I'll have the classes which are responsible to find the elements for these pages. So right click, new class, and I have two pages. One is this one, which is the login page, right? One is the login page. So here I have to find all these elements, the username, the password, the login, and this message here that displays when it fails, right? So this is the login page. Let me write it here, login page. And also we also have, after we log in, we also have this one, which I'm going to call this one main page. So here, if I log in correctly, I want to see, let's say, the products here. I'm going to see this menu here. I'm going to see this logo. So I want to see something there, right? So that I'll call it, right click, new class. I'm going to call it main page. Main page. Okay. So this login page, we're using, as we said one more time, we're using page object model. So this class here is responsible to find the elements of the login page, and the main page here is responsible to find the elements in this other page. Okay, so let me log out here, and then you already know how do I find the username. Right click, inspect, and I find this text box here, right? And always when I see an ID, I am very happy. I prefer to use the ID. So if they ask you in interviews, which locator do you use to locate the elements? And then my answer is, if I have an ID, I prefer to use the ID because that's unique. If I don't have ID, I prefer to use, for example, CSS or XPath. Why? Because they are very powerful, and you can find any elements even if they don't have any ID. Okay, so ID, if I see ID, that's my preferred solution. So let me go to the login page, and of course I have found, of course, let me copy paste this one. So Command-Shift-O will import this find by and these other things. So I will find the elements, right? Did I misspell it? Oh, no, not in the main page. I'm like, what's happening here? In the login page here. Sorry, guys. In the login page, Command-Shift-O, I'll import these things. So I'll find the element, the username element, by using the ID username. I'll find this element by using this ID. I'll find the login button, right? This one here, right click, inspect, and I see that this one has a ID login button, also has a value login, right? So in this case, I just wanted to use the XPath. Of course, I can also use the ID. And then also when something wrong happens here, right? When something wrong happens, this one is shown. Right click, and I see, how do I find this one? This is a text inside this H3. So that's how I find it. So under H3, find me that that element that has data test error, right? So data test error. Find the H3 with the data test error. That's how I find it with XPath. In this case, we're using page factory, which means that this one will load the elements, right? This one will find the elements when they are needed. Okay, so whenever you need the elements, that's when to find it. Okay, so this is the structure. Inside the constructor, we put page factory dot init elements, and here we use base class dot driver and this. If this class extends, right? If this class extends base class, then I don't need to say base class dot driver. I can just say driver, right? Because I already, whatever is in my parent is, I also have it, right? But if I want to, I can also just not extend this one and just use it, for example, base class dot driver, right? So that's what inheritance helps us. If we are inheriting a class, then we don't need to specify here. We just can say driver, because the elements that are in my parent, I also inherit them, right? Okay, good. And then in the main page, for now, I just find one element, and let me copy this one also. in the main page, right? In the main page, I just find this element. Command Shift O will import these clauses and this annotations that are needed here. And here, when I log in, standard user, secret sauce. When I log in, I want to see this, let's say this logo here. So right click, inspect, and then this is a logo which is a div which has a class app logo, right? So XPath, give me the div which has the class app logo. So I can see this logo only if I have logged in, right? Only if I'm in this page. That's what I will use for my validation. Okay, that's what I will use for my validation. So let us continue here. Now that we have these two pages, we go to the page initializer, and I say every time when, let me go to the base class. Every time in the base class, when I open the driver, I also initialize. What I'm doing in initialize, I am, let's say, calling the constructor, right? So let me copy paste this one here and copy paste this one. So here I have login page. I also have main page, right? I have main page, and I'm going to call this one main page. And here, what will initializer do? Copy this one here. And of course, this will be main page, right? Main page. So initialize method, it will call the constructor, right? It will call the constructor of the login page and the main page. What is the constructor doing? The constructor is telling how to initialize the elements, right? I will initialize elements by using the driver which is created in the base class. Okay, there are different ways of doing this one. This is one of the ways. If you have seen in your bootcamp, they do it in a different way. Don't worry, you can do it in different ways. Okay, so this method here, as many pages we'll have, you'll initialize them all in this method. Okay, and this method is called every time after the browser is opened. That's the moment where you want to we want to call the constructors of these classes. Okay, good. So now the only thing that I need to do here, login steps, right? Login steps has to extend the base class. If I want to use the driver, it has to extend the base class. But page initializer is extending the base class. So if I extend page initializer, actually I'm also extending the base class. But sometimes I also want to call something from the common methods. So common methods is also extending page initializer. So we have base class, page initializer extends base class, and we have common methods extends page initializer. So here we have multi-level inheritance. So if I inherit this one right here in my login steps, if I extend, right, if I extend common methods, actually I'm extending common methods. I'm also extending page initializer. I'm also extending base class. This also can be in different ways, but by extending them, it's easier for me because I can just use them. So let me import this one first of all. Okay, so now that I've imported it, now I can extend it. Okay, so in the common methods, I have send text, right? I have this method, send text. Let me go to the common methods. So this method, what does it do? This accepts a web element and some text, and what it will do, it will clear the web element and it will send the text, right? So these are methods that I've created there that I want to use. Of course, you can do it in different ways. So what is the web element? The web element is in the login page. So now I am using login page dot username, right? So if I click here, I'm talking about this username, which is under login page. So since I've extended common methods, and common methods has extended page initializer, right? This one also extended page initializer. So indirectly, in this login step, I'm also extending page initializer. That's why I can use this login page variable here, right? That's why I can use this login page variable here. So what is the text that I want to send? The text that I want to send is, where is it? Let me log out here. So this is the text that I want to send. Okay, so send this text to the username. Enter valid password. So again, similar method. Send text, login page dot password, and the text that will be sent is this text. Oh, actually, you know what? I don't want to hard code the text, right? But the username is also stored in this configuration.properties, right? So why don't I read it from this configuration.properties? Here's the correct username and the password. So how do I read it? I say here, configs reader dot get property, and I use here username. Okay, and then for the password, again, I use configs reader dot get property, and I use here password. Okay, but you have to be careful, guys. If you miss a letter, or if it's uppercase or lowercase, then you'll have a wrong thing here, right? So you have to be careful. Whatever you have written here, username and password, so that's what you have to write here. Okay, otherwise it will not find by using the key. And I'll click on the login button. So how do I click on the login button? Under common methods, I have a click method, and just I have to send the element. Where's the element? The login page is responsible to find the elements. In my steps here, I don't need to find the elements. The elements, they are found in login page. Okay, so login button, and then I validate that the user is logged in, right? I validate that the user is logged in. How do I validate? I want to see after I've logged in, I want to see that logo that is in the login page. So actually, I have these login steps here, and then, yeah, okay. So I'm going to use assertion here. These assertion are not test and G assertions. They are JUnit assertion. Okay. So assert true, right? Assert true. Let me copy the code from here because I don't want to waste time. So here I'm saying the app logo under main page is displayed. I want that one to be true. Okay. And after I log in, I also want to wait for 2 seconds. Wait is also a method that I have in my common methods. And here I just specify I want to wait for 2 seconds. Okay. User leaves password empty. So instead of putting the password in this step here, I want to do the same thing, but I want to leave the password empty. How do I leave the password empty? By just putting an empty here, right? So I'm saying into this password, send the empty password. I validate that string. So I validate that this string here, right, is displayed, or I validate that this string here is displayed. So go to the method, and then here I want, right, I am expecting for a string. So let me go here. So I'm going to call this one expected message, right? Expected message. That's what I expect. And I want to assert that message that is expected, and also I got the real message from login page. I read the error message, and I want these two to be equal. Okay. So if these two are equal, this will pass. If these two are different, this will fail. Enter uses invalid username as string, right? So let me go here. Let me say, you know what? This username will come as a variable username, and I want to send that username, right? I want to set that username that is coming, which will be this wrong one, right? This random username, and the same for the password, right? And the same for the password. Let me copy it from here, and we're done. So the password that is coming, I'm going to just use a variable here, password. I want to send this one to this password. Command-Shift-F, and all the steps are implemented. I'm sorry it took some time, but I wanted to do it one by one. Okay. So at this moment, these steps here in the feature file, they are implemented here in the login steps, right? So let me go to the test runner, and let me run now our are feature files that are under this folder, and that they will be glued, right? They will be matched every step with the implementation under this package. And I want to run only those that have the tag login. Right click, run as JUnit test. If I run this one, then I'll see that the browser is opened. You see login is done, and then valid login is perfectly done. The second one is leaving the password empty. It shows the message, but on purposely I failed it. And the third scenario is we are using a wrong password, and this scenario also passed. So if we go here and if we see this first scenario passed, this second one failed, and this one passed. Why this one failed? It failed because here I added this extra string here. But if I just remove it, then the test should pass. I'm just failing it on purpose. So if we go here and if we refresh the project, right click, refresh. So guys, 5 more minutes and I'm done, okay? So under target, in the failed, I see that this step here under login feature, line 11, right? Under login feature, line 11. So this scenario has failed, okay? So this has been stored in this text failed.txt. And cucumber JSON, this has in the JSON format which steps has been passed, which one failed, how much time it took, and different information. But if I want to see the reports, I have to run it from the pom.xml, and here I also have to add Surefire plugin and cucumber reports. So this is the last thing that I will add, and I'm done. So I copy paste from here. So there are 2 plugins that have to be added. Be careful, it should be after dependence, not after, but outside dependencies and inside the project, okay? So here I added this build, which has 2 plugins. One is Maven Surefire plugin to make sure that I run whichever test runner that I want, right? In this case, I want to run the test runner with this name. And the second plugin is Maven Cucumber Reporting. What this one will do, it will read, right? It will read the this JSON file, right? It will read this JSON file here, the cucumber, where is it? The cucumber.json, the file here under target, and it will create the reports, okay? Command-Shift-F will format the code, and it will make it look beautiful, okay? So how do I do it? Also, let me refresh the project one more time, refresh, and let me remove, right? Let me remove the screenshots that were created. So 1 was failed and 2 were passed. So I want to remove this one because I'm going to run the test again. Delete the screenshots, okay? And also under target, so right click, run as Maven clean. What this one will do, this will remove everything from the target, right? It will make it ready for us to run the test. So this one runs and everything should be fine, and then build success. So where is it? Target folder is empty. So now I want to run the tests. Right click, run as Maven test. Also, I can do it from the console. If I go to terminal to this project and I say nvn test, and it will also run the test, but we don't have time for it. Let me run it from pom.xml. So let me save it and let me run. Right click, run as Maven test. So these 3 tests will be executed. Okay, so now the tests are running. So the first test, the first scenario is being executed, login is successfully, and then this test passed. The second scenario, empty password. Since the text will not be matching, this scenario will fail. And the third one, this one will pass because the text will match, okay? So I run 3 scenarios under 1 feature file. And what this one will do, and it also tells me that error is because some of the scenarios failed. And if I refresh this one, if I refresh the project, and I see that under screenshots, one has been like, one screenshot is under failed. Why? Because the text here didn't match, and 2 scenarios was passed. So a screenshot has been saved after every scenario. And also, since this one, what will this one will do? This Maven not this one, this Maven Cucumber reporting, what this one will do, it will read the Cucumber JSON and it will create the reports. Here under Cucumber HTML reports, you have these beautiful reports here. One of them is telling me that I run one feature file and it failed. Why? Because if one of the scenarios failed, it means that the feature file failed, okay? If I see here 3 scenarios, 2 of them passed, 1 of them failed. And then from 12 steps, 11 steps passed, 1 of them failed, right? Also, I see this report, that feature here, showing to me, let me close this one down here, showing that the first scenario running, so the hooks happened, the steps was executed, and then after, right, and then here the screenshot was taken, right, for the first scenario when it was logged in successfully. The second scenario, it is failing because in the steps, this one was not the same with the message showing in the feature file. And after that one, again, a screenshot was taken, empty password screenshot, and here we see the screenshot that was taken when the password was left empty. And the third scenario, again, here we have the hooks, the steps that passed, and then the last step is hooks again after the scenario, which also has a screenshot, which was attached to the scenario. Okay, so this is all for today, how we created a Cucumber framework from scratch. I know that you're tired now, but I hope that it was helpful. And as I told you, I'm going to share the video there, and then also you can do it slowly by watching the video. Any questions for now before I close? You can unmute yourself and you can ask questions, because I don't want to read things from chat right now. Any questions, guys?
Cyber security'ye ilişkin konuşacak mısınız acaba?
Nasıl? Ben İngilizce düşünüyordum, anlamadım soruyu.
Sorry about that.
No, Türkçe sorabilirsiniz ama ben aklımda İngilizce bekliyordum. Söyle abi, Türkçe söyle.
Dersin başında bir cyber security ile ilişkin bir tanım yapmıştınız.
Evet.
Açıklama yapmıştınız. Bir link falan verecektiniz, unutmayın diye söyledim. Kayıt için. Cyber
security ile ilgili değil mi? Orada o telefon numaralar var. Onlara şey yapabilirsiniz. Onları da paylaşacağız.
Evet,
ben şeyde söylemiştim. Bizim QA derslerinin, daha doğrusu Java derslerinin bir linki vardı. Orada işte QA'de ilk başta ne yapılıyor onlar.
Şimdi gönderdiler galiba. Teşekkür ederim.
Tamam. Okey. Orada telefon numaralar var. Onları arayabilirsiniz eğer sorularınız varsa.
Burada one question. Here, if we ran the test from XML, so if we wouldn't run from there, wouldn't we seeing the screenshots and reports? Why did we?
Yes. So yeah, you'll not be able, if you run it from the test runner, then you don't. The reports are not created, right? So if you want to create the reports, you can either do it from here, right? Right click and run as Maven test, or you can do it from the terminal. So if you go to the terminal, let me go. I thought that you're tired, but it looks like you're not tired. So I go to my project, so Eclipse workspace, and then automation framework. And here in my project, I also can say MVN clean, which will clean the target folder, right? Even if the project is closed, I can do it, right? That's what I said at the beginning. That's why we created a Maven project, because we create the structure, we add the dependencies, and the third thing is that we can run the code from here. So even if my Eclipse is closed, let me close my Eclipse. If everything is closed, right? So now I can say MVN test, and the test will execute, right? All these 3 tests will be executed, and the folders and everything will be saved in that specific, and the reports will be saved in that specific place, okay? So I can run it from my terminal, as you can see, right? The tests are running and everything is showing in the terminal, all the steps and everything. But if you run it from the test runner, the Cucumber JSON will be created, but this plugin that was added at the end, which will read the Cucumber JSON and create the reports, unfortunately you cannot do it if you run it from the test runner. So you have to run it either from the pom.xml or from the command prompt here. Okay.
Thank you. One last question. How are we going to be able to rerun the failed tests altogether?
Yes. I'm also going to add that one. Okay, not right now, but I'm also going to add that that class, right? So there is a specific class which will actually in my other project I'll add it there, and I'm going to put it into the so there will be another, let's say, failed runner or failed test runner, as you wish to call it, and it will read the txt file and it will run only those tests that were failed, right? You fix those tests and you run it again and you're expecting them to pass. So I'm going to add that one into the project.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, guys? I promise that I'll finish it before 10 p.m. Eastern time, but now it's 10:03. But still, I'm happy that we were able to do it.
I have two more questions if no one is going to ask.
Yeah, you can ask.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So one is, I saw at some websites saying that in page classes, we should use the access modifier as private, not public. I couldn't understand the explanation.
Yes, so you can, yes, very good, I understand. So let me answer the question. So here, you're talking about this one. So under Java pages, you're talking about these elements here, right? You can make them private and you can use getters and setters, right? Otherwise,
yes,
they will not be able to access. So you're going to have getters and setters. You know about getters and setters, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
But why would we do that?
So getters and setters are a safe way to access variables. So for example, if you make this one public, everyone can access this one, right? From outside this class. That's what it means. So inside the project, it can be accessed from everywhere. If you want to make sure that they can be accessed from a secure path, let's say, you put getters and setters. So there in getters and setters, you can say if, for example, if they give the correct password, they can access it. Or so getters and setters are a safe way to access them, but still they'll be able to access them if you allow it. So we have to talk about getters and setters, which is a big topic.
Sure. Last question. Could you please explain the difference between library, jar file, plugins, and dependency?
So dependency here in the pom.xml. So these dependencies that we have added here is meaning that our project is depending on another project. Which project? Selenium Java, which means that I want to use the classes that are in that project. So some guy has created a project, right? This Selenium Java project. And in that project, there are these classes that will help me, let's say, click on some button, you know, do this Selenium stuff, right? So those things that are in that project, there are, whenever you create a project, you create a jar file. So there are, when you want to use Selenium, there are multiple jar files that you want to use, right? So if I open this Maven dependencies here, so there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a lot of Selenium jar files. You can add them into your project by the way that we mentioned, right? Right click and then build path. And then you have to add those jar files. But by adding the dependency, this dependency, like they have created a Maven project in such a way that when you add the dependency, it will get those jar files from the remote repository, from the Maven repository, and it will download it in your computer so you can use it in your project. So jar file means that those projects that are needed, right? You are just specifying one of them, but probably this is depending on other jar files. So it's downloading the direct jar file, which is this one, 3.141.59, Selenium Java 3.141.59, but also it is also downloaded indirect, so other jar files that are needed for the Selenium, right? And the same for Apache PI. There are a lot of, like, I don't know, 20 or something jar files. Instead of downloading them one by one, this will make it sure to download. So this is dependency. When you add the dependency, it will download the jar files into your computer. So jar files are these projects that have these classes that you want to use. Plugin, for example, in this case, plugin is something that that is used, for example, in Chrome, right? In Chrome, you have plugins that are installed. It means that there are some extra things that you want to install to do some specific task in Chrome. So the same thing here. There are these plugins that will help you do some extra stuff in Eclipse, right? Or depending on where you are putting the plugin. So I don't know if I was clear about this plugin part, but do you have any other questions, or was I clear? Or I don't know.
Oh, thank you very much.
Okay, guys. Any other questions?
Yes, sir. Can I ask you some question?
Yes.
Where we used in this framework abstraction, inheritance, and polymorphism. It's a very popular question in interview. Where you used in OOP principles?
Yes, very good. So I explained, for example, here in login steps, for example, you are extending common methods, and common methods is extending some other methods. Is extending some other class. So here you're using inheritance, right? So when you're extending a class, you're using inheritance. Polymorphism, for example, right? We talked about these methods that have the same name, right? These two methods have the same name, but different parameter types. One expects a web element and a string. One expects a web element and an integer, right? So these two methods have the same name, but different parameters. So these two methods are called overloaded methods. So in this case, we're using polymorphism, okay? Polymorphism. And for example, when you create a list, I don't know, I can find some examples here. But for example, when you create, in this case here, you create a list of something, but this one returns so for example, it can return a array list, right? So you're saying list of something and you create a new array list. In this case, you're doing abstraction, right? So because list is a method, is an interface which has no implementation, but inside there you're storing, inside this element, which is a list, you're storing, for example, an array list. So I have to find an example here. I don't have it in front of me, but so for example, web element also is something that is generic, right? So this web element, it can be a text box, it can be a radio button, it can be a different web elements there, right? The checkbox, radio button, text box, all these things, but you're storing them as web elements. So which is a generic class. I can find some example if you ask me after the class, and I can find an example about abstraction and polymorphism. So all these things. So what the other question?
No, thanks.
Yes, I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared for it. So if I knew the question before, I would like find a specific example, but I was able to find about inheritance and polymorphism. But yeah, we also can find other examples here in our let's say project. I don't know, probably here if we go to the Excel utility, for example, and then here, for example, here you see you are creating a list of maps, but normally you are creating an array list. So this one here is abstraction, because list is an interface, but you are creating the child of the interface, right? One of the implementation, which is the array list. Also, you can create here a linked list or different types of implementation of list. So storing it in a generic, but creating an object that is the implementation. The same for the map. Map is an interface, but in the Excel, you are creating a new linked hash map. So you're creating a linked hash map, but you're storing as a map. Why? Because whenever you want to change it from linked hash map to tree hash map, still you don't have to change anything in the code. Everything will work perfectly fine, right? So that's about abstraction and polymorphism. Any other questions? Okay.
Can I just quickly ask? I know you are very tired, but thank you very much. Your explanation is wonderful, mashallah.
Thank you.
So can you
Inshallah,
quickly
mashallah.
add how would you add API to this framework? Like, would you add it to this, or would you create a separate framework?
Yes, very good question. So depending on the project, so in some companies they have a team for UI testing, front end testing that we did today. They have a team for backend testing. So they have a different project, let's say, for backend. In some companies they combine them together. They have one team that does the front end and back end, depending on the how big the company is and depending on the project. So here also we can add, right? Of course we can do the API testing here. It's the same thing, right? In the feature file, in our case, right? In the feature file, you can write a feature to test the API, right? So also this is combined with the UI, because in the UI you want to do something, and then in the API you want to test that that was really stored. For example, in the UI you're going here and you're logging in with the correct username and password. For example, log in here, and let's say we add this one to cart, and we go to the checkout. This is a sample website, right? A sample web application. And then we go to this one, and you put some information here and some zip code, and then you buy something, right? You buy something. So finish. Okay. So let's say this one stores the order in the database. So now you can go to the database and check if that order that you just did, if it's there, or you can test it from the API if that order that you did, if it's stored in the database, right? Because both API and SQL, they're checking if the information is stored in the database. So here you can add extra steps in the feature files, and of course here also you can have in the steps you can have also things about APIs. But of course you'll have to make sure that you have rest assured in your dependency, right? Because if you don't have rest assured in your dependency, you cannot test APIs, and you need JDBC for the database connection, right? So in the dependencies, you're gonna add those things that you need for the API testing and for the JDBC. But of course, sometimes they prefer to keep separate UI testing from database testing or from backend testing. Yes, it can be, depending on the project.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, guys, so next week, I'm going to talk to the admins, and then if the day is available again next Monday. So our other friend, our teacher, Sabah, he will explain, like on top of this project, he'll explain data-driven, right? Data-driven test, which will try to do these scenario outlines and to do the data tables, right? And then in a couple of weeks again, we'll have our two friends, which will help you, which will explain you how to do the, let's say, applications in the market and stuff. So I'm going to talk to them, and I'm going to decide for the topic what it will be, and then we can also talk with the admins of Taifa team. So thank you for giving me this opportunity. If you have any friends that are asking for any school or any something, I'd really appreciate if you suggest us. And then anyways, if you have any questions or anything, I'll if I know the answer, I'll try to help you. Okay, so have a good night and see you next time. Good night. I'm going to share the video and everything.